All right, welcome back to the Budget Cut Podcast. This is Sean Connor, CEO with U-Team Sponsor. Pleasure to be joined today by Dr. Christopher Parker, Executive Director of the NJCAA. Chris, thanks for coming on.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Always appreciate everything U-Team Sponsor does for the NJCAA and its member institutions.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Hopefully, as we've been letting people know through our podcast, hey, really, we're trying to give people as much information as we can. We want to be a part of the solution. We're trying to lead with positivity and poise, and hopefully, by bringing folks like yourself on, Chris, we can share what's going on out there, how this is affecting people, what they might be able to do to help them through this, and just be a resource daily for people. So, again, thanks for coming on. I think first place I'd start with, how you doing, man? How's this affecting you, the national office, and since a lot's changed in our world in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah, you never realize how much you miss people until you have to be away from them for long periods of time. And my wife appreciates me being home and with her more, but at the same time, it's tough. I mean, that first few days, it was almost a depressed state of just coping with reality. Emotionally, cutting loose of spring sports altogether and canceling the rest of the winter championships. Emotionally, that was the hardest decision I've ever had to make, no matter what the situation was. Ethically and logically, it was the right decision. We know that, but emotionally, it was just draining because there's so many things that go into it. But myself, my staff, we've been meeting by Zoom as well. We've had Zoom meetings. North Carolina has a rule of no more than 10 people. So we went in just with some of the leadership team last Monday. We've been meeting by Zoom, having conference calls, meeting with our eligibility committee and many others just to get tasks done. With no sports going on, kind of revamped how we're showcasing the association, ourselves. One thing that we are doing is a lot of tedious projects that need to be done for a long time. So those templates of many things that need to be done, we're utilizing our time now to take care of those.
Good. Yeah, it seems to be the sentiment across the board. We've heard that a lot. Hey, take it one day at a time and look at the past priority list, and the things that typically you never could quite get to seem to be the ones that are floating right to the top now, which is good to hear. What have been the focuses? I guess there's obviously a lot of challenges that you and your staff, I'm sure, are embarking upon in these unprecedented times. What would you say are kind of the top 2-3 priorities that you guys are looking at from student athletes, coaches, eligibility, scholarships from that standpoint?
Yeah, the eligibility piece is priority number one. Getting the full clearance of our eligibility committee, vetting, reviewing, and getting it to our board on April 3rd for their vote of approval, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page. You understand exactly what we're doing, why we're doing it, and getting them the detailed information. We're getting a lot of the what ifs, and it's hard to answer the what ifs right now until some other dominoes fall into play, and not being able to predict the future and being able to guess at these things, it's difficult. So we're trying to be as lenient, but as positive and reassuring and providing good leadership at the same time. So really focus on the eligibility piece, how the kids transfer, how they're making sure they're in good quarters when they transfer, as far as their status with the NAIA and the NCAA, working on MOUs with both of those organizations to see what we can accomplish and get done. But those are the real challenges right now. For us, of course, from an organizational standpoint, it's a huge loss of revenue not having spring sports and the winter championships. It's a huge loss of revenue. So really looking at how we are, and internally, I put a pause on every expense, unless it's a mandatory expense, such as personnel and rent and internet and things like that. We're not allowing our staff to spend any money on anything. Our budget is frozen without necessary things. So really focusing all those aspects, both internally and externally, of how we get through this together.
Yeah, wow, that's great. Well, I think going back to the number one focus being eligibility. What have the conversations been like with the NAIA and the NCAA? I know a number of the 2-year college ADs that we've interviewed so far, it seems to be they're kind of in this waiting or holding pattern, waiting for some news and information to disseminate its way back down to them. What can you share with people in terms of conversation you guys have had and how that might affect their student athletes on their campuses?
Yeah, in this case, the NJCAA is granting every student athlete in the spring semester they can come back. In these cases, it's basically like the spring semester never took place. You know, different parts of the country, there may have been 20 baseball games played, 20 softball games, but in the Northeast, they hadn't even played a game yet. So
Yeah.
it's really no difference. It's a season of no participation. And all of these things have been vetted last week through the eligibility committee. And again, tomorrow, which will be Tuesday, the 25th or whatever date it is there for the follow-up conversation to go to the board for April 3rd. But we're putting together some information now to get out to the ADs out front and say, hey, here's the information, just be patient with us because we do have to go through a process and make sure we get all this stuff done. But it's absolutely number one concern of our coaches and our ADs, and it's our priority because we want to make sure that we're protecting and creating the right the right environment, the right opportunities for our student athletes.
Yeah, that makes me think of I think it was a tweet that you sent out last week, and you talked about, hey, for student athletes, the message is clear for you guys right now, which is focus on your academics. That's going to be obviously a really important aspect to look without the athletic endeavors or competition and that opportunity right now, focus on what you can control and the academic side. Do you think much from the academic side will change in terms of eligibility? I know we've had some ADs have talked about, hey, you've got kind of this crunch of student athletes that may have been here for 2 or 3 years. They've got enough credits to go on and move on and transfer, but and they get that additional year of spring, but they've already taken enough classes. Have you guys talked about kind of that crunch and how that may affect student athletes?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different scenarios. The eligibility committee is looking at all of those. What's unique is state by state, institution by institution now are moving to that pass fail outlook. And how does that affect different students who don't have access to the internet, high speed internet, to the resources that they need? I mean, we take that stuff for granted every day until it hits us. Oh wow, you don't have that? No, I've never had that. And how does that affect the student's ability to finish? There are schools that are proposing administrative withdrawals, and it's basically like the student athlete or the student in general never came to school either. So we're being very meticulous and looking at all those cases. We had a long discussion, 2 hours and 45-minute discussion on that last Thursday, and some of those exact things came up. So we're trying cautiously to do the right thing for everybody, to protect the student athlete, both in the instance if they want to move on or if they want to come back.
Got it.
Because in our job, we have to make sure that they have both pathways, because the student athlete needs to make the decision of whether they're moving on or they're electing to come back. And we don't have an opinion one way or the other. We just want to make sure that both pathways are as clear and feasible for all student athletes as possible.
That's great. That's great. Well, undoubtedly, you and your staff are being challenged in ways I'm sure you guys couldn't even imagine. What have you been leaning on in terms of a source of strength? Or I know people have just either past experiences, they've got mentors, people, books, teachings. What is it right now that's helping you deal with all of this?
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of things. I go to I lean on some of my close resources, people who I consider mentors and that I can trust, no matter whether it's criticism or positivity. I believe in what they say. I listen to what they say, and then I've gotten a lot of feedback from membership, and when I get that positive feedback, no matter whether they agree or disagree, it's just a thank you for doing this, thank you for doing that. It just keeps us motivated in these times of turmoil when it's like, how do we do this? How do we get through this? How do we collectively do this? And people are looking to us. They're looking to us for leadership. They're looking for us for that strength and guidance. I go to the Bible for scripture. I'm just that type of person, and I look at it and I keep reminding myself of the blessings that all of us do have on a routine basis. But collectively, taking all those into account is really the pushing forward. There's no easy button for this. We can call Staples and ask for the easy button, but they just don't have one for this. And I even put out something the other day about officials. I mean, you look at all the winter sport officials and all the basketball games are supposed to work from our level to NCAA to NAIA to all the spring lacrosse, softball, baseball officials. Those individuals, it aches for them because they're out of work right now, and really trying to make sure that everybody sees the collective picture of this is don't get mad, don't get upset, try to stay positive, try to stay motivated in a way that you're helping you're helping to solve a problem, not creating new problems or creating your own problems, because in this, nobody's ever done this ever.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what level you're a coach, student athlete, AD, you're in our office, you're with E-team, you haven't experienced this. So how do we collectively come together to make sure that we're prosperous when we get to the end of this?
Yeah, it's unprecedented or uncharted waters for sure. Something we've talked about doing, and I'll announce it now during the podcast. But we've talked about, at this point, for every school that wants to run a giving day, we're going to actually their first $10,000 that they raise, we're going to give it to them for free. Any program, any athletic team or program that runs a campaign. We're going to give them their first $5,000 free. So starting April 1st, we're going to do our part in giving back, and because we know there's going to be, there's going to be budgets that are going to be lost. If you don't use it, then you lose it. With a lot of the public institutions, and other schools are going to have a scholarship crunch. We've started to hear that quite a bit with kids not moving on, and a whole nother incoming class of freshmen coming in. So we're going to do our part, and we're going to lead the same way you're talking about. Be positive, give something back. Think of others first, put the people first, and so we're gonna do our part in that respect, and we're looking forward to hopefully making an impact in a positive way there for sure.
And I can tell you that's what E-team's been known for is what they support everybody and making sure that they're front and center of telling their story. It's not about E-team. It's about these individual student athletes and coaches and programs. And that's what I applaud you guys for, and appreciate your partnership with the NJCAA, because you guys make a lot of things happen that wouldn't happen but for E-team.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. And hey, look, that's why we do what we do, man. We've walked a mile in the shoes of the student athletes and the coaches, and they all have great stories to share. And we want to make sure right now I think the world needs a lot of that. It needs a lot of positive interaction, and I think this provides another opportunity for people to do that. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the coaches. Just from an athletic department standpoint, and how coaches are dealing with this. Have you guys heard much from the coaches specifically in terms of maybe some unique ways or strategies that they're dealing with some of the challenges on their campuses, or maybe even from an athletic director's perspective? I know obviously you forged a lot of really good relationships with these athletic directors in the 44 states that you guys are governing. Any stories that worth mentioning with the folks listening today?
Yeah, I've been reading a lot of things from different athletic directors and coaches, and a lot of our people are one and the same, and maybe ADs and coaches at the same time. How they're managing their kids, how they're leading their kids, how they're making sure that the student athletes are staying on top of their academics. Literally, phone calls, emails, text messages, Zoom meetings with their student athletes. Like, hey, you still have to get your education. You still have to get to the finish line, and that doesn't happen everywhere. Yeah. But at our level, they understand how significant it is to change a life and how important it is. And just reading some of those things and seeing what they're doing in these times to be creative but also progressive, it's amazing. And I give every one of them a pat on the back and say thank you for doing what you do.
That's awesome. Yeah, technology seems to be front and center. We hear that a lot. Communication's been really at the forefront of how they think they're going to be able to get through this on a day-to-day basis, and seems to be, tell you what, if you haven't invested in Zoom technologies, make sure you do it, because I'm sure they got to be blowing up right now. But one of the things that's important to understand about Zoom, they actually have offered K through 12. They've offered for their technology for free, which is pretty cool. So it's just great to see the human element, companies like that putting people over profit. That's really cool, and great to hear that schools in the NJCAA are taking that similar approach and communicating through technology, because the kids need it. They need that resource. They need the chip and the guidance still. Well, that's good. One of the last questions I got for you, Chris, would be, if there's we talked a lot about how you guys are doing things. Is there specifically maybe one kind of unified or uniform message that you and your staff are sharing externally, or if you have one maybe that you guys, a mantra that you guys are living off of daily in terms of internally.
Yeah, just kind of the stay positive, stay focused, stay together. Those three core components to us, are what the NJC is all about. It's again, stay positive, stay focused, stay together. That unity type of atmosphere aspect. You've seen the NCAA really do a good job. I think it came from the SIDs actually, on one program, one NCAA type of thing. But those three terms are really what we're trying to make sure our people understand and are part of.
Good. That's great, man. That's great. Well, good. Well, I think from like I said, from our standpoint, I think this is great. If we'll get this out there. We'll get it out on Twitter and Instagram and share your story specifically and how that has affected the NJCAA, the coaches and student athletes. So we'll get that out there to everybody. And again, Chris, appreciate your time and we'll look forward to continue to be as supportive as we can. Let us know if there's anything else that we can do to help. Like I said, we're definitely going to try and do our part starting April 1st and for the schools and for these programs that need the help. And we're going to try to continue to lead with positivity and poise. So we'll steal a little bit of what you're talking about.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you guys for everything that you guys do for the NJCAA and sports programs all over the country.
You're welcome. You're welcome. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep doing it. So we'll have a great rest of the day. Continued, success with leading the charge through these uncharted waters. And I know this will be really helpful for a lot of the ADs and coaches that are out there just to hear from you and hear how you guys are navigating this. So Chris, thanks again for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Take care.